Welcome back to Burn the Haystack with Josh and Jesse.
A conversation all about culture, faith, and memes.
Speaking of which, it is Wednesday, my dudes.
It is Wednesday, my dudes. Welcome. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're all having a fantastic day. Whether you are listening to this on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or indeed any other day of the week.
It's a beautiful thing.
You're a beautiful thing.
So today we're talking about church, funnily enough.
Yeah. And it's going to be an interesting one. For those of you who might know a bit about Josh and I, we've alluded to this before, but we are both pastors, which means that we work in a church, different churches, but we are steeped and we are saturated and we are totally immersed in the church world for most of our week.
Oh yeah, like whenever I'm a very social person, and maybe if you work in retail, maybe I'm the kind of person that really annoys you. But I like to strike up a lot of conversations. Basically, I kind of like to talk to everybody, whether I'm in a cafe or on a plane, whatever.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, the most common thing, especially if you're in like a younger, more trendy store, I don't know what that voice was, but anyway, if you're in, a lot of the times they'll ask you, "Hey, what's your plans for the weekend?" And I'll go to say something, and then I realize, man, my entire weekend is all church stuff. Which obviously isn't common ground for a lot of people, but I'm like, I've got something because we go to church on Saturday, as Seventh-day Adventist, but I'm like, okay, most of Saturday's gone, and then I've got a meeting in the afternoon, and then we're doing such and such on Sunday. Maybe it's a working bee, or we're doing, I remember one time last year we gave out free pancakes, and that was a whole Sunday as well. It was an awesome day, but I'm like, my entire weekend is just like church stuff often, and it's good stuff. I love it. We just had a weekend like that a while ago. We had this big leadership summit.
It was huge. It was a big weekend. We were both heavily involved, preaching, or I think we were both preaching. It's like such a blur.
Yeah.
Afternoon programs, Saturday night programs, and then a big leadership summit on Sunday. So it was 2 days straight.
Yep.
It was 2 days straight.
Again, great day. Like I wouldn't do this stuff if I didn't love it. But, it's kind of funny how everybody gets to, back to work on Monday, after a refreshing weekend, and it gets to Monday for us. It's just like, man, just like plane crash, eh? It's like, oh.
There are certain Mondays where I get no work done. I'm not productive, even though I'm technically supposed to be working.
Yeah.
Hope none of my bosses are watching this. But after a big weekend, sometimes you just have nothing left to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And it's pretty, I don't know. I think I remember talking to one of my friends. He like did a lot of volunteering in a big, like a mega church sort of thing. And he was saying like around the office, they'd all call Mondays the holy hangover. Right, they had this huge holy weekend, and then Monday is just like, okay, everybody just take 5.
I will be honest. I actually admitted this to my church a few weekends ago. I love doing church, especially on the weekend. But I also love driving away from work, from the church, after we've packed up everything and I've talked to everybody and everybody's, wished them, have a great week or see you on next Monday for whatever meeting. And it's just so beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, driving away from it all.
Don't take that the wrong way, people. It's just like, from our perspective, it's like, okay, we've accomplished all this.
Yeah.
And it can be a really rewarding feeling. It's not that we don't love you. It's just sometimes we just need to say, okay, that's job done.
But today, we want to talk about church, but we want to talk more about it in more of a 360-degree view, not necessarily just the programming side on a weekend, but the way the whole thing is structured. And if you're a Christian, if you're somebody who is involved in church, especially if you're somebody who's involved on a big level, like you're a leader or you're a volunteer and you have a lot to do, it's really easy for us, those of us who are immersed in the church world, to just continue doing church, continue participating in the operation, in the mass scale, sort of structure of how this all works, without actually stopping to think, is this working?
Yeah.
Are we achieving what we want to achieve, what we believe God is calling us to achieve? Is the way that we're doing things actually working?
Yeah, and it's a big series of questions. It's not something you can just answer in even a 50-minute podcast or whatever.
No, for sure.
It's a question that you have to keep on asking and keep on looking at. Part of the problem is, though, I think a lot of people become really scared to ask that question.
Yeah.
Because, if it's not working, all of a sudden you've got to admit something's wrong or we're failing in some area. That can be really scary for a lot of people, just being honest. And also, I think a lot of people actually cast a lot of blame too. I think that's the other, if they can't accept that they're at fault, they have to cast blame. So something, for example, we hear on the church side, I guess, of things, and I hear a lot, is people will say, oh no, people just don't like coming to church anymore, or people just don't like this. It's essentially what they're saying is, it's their fault, not our fault.
And what we're specifically talking about, it's for those of us who do church, it's super ego boosting and pumping when you see your church growing and doing lots of great stuff. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, it's really demoralizing when things aren't really going great, when people stop coming, when you're disengaging with, for instance, the younger generation, desperately trying to, reach and speak to teenagers and kids and young adults like us, millennials.
Yeah.
It's super demoralizing when it doesn't seem like those targets are being reached, when people aren't being engaged, when your church isn't growing. And so that's sort of what we're talking about. It's very easy for us to blame everybody except maybe ourselves in this whole thing.
Don't be ridiculous, Jesse. It's never our fault.
I like to think about it like this. I read this in a book, so I can't take any credit for it. For those of you who have, bought furniture before, I want you to think about the first couch you ever bought for your household. Now, Corinne, my wife and I still have the same couch that we bought only 3 or 4 years ago, so it's still relatively in good condition.
Same.
Yeah. We're sitting on yours, eh?
Yeah, true. Actually, you kind of forget it when you're in the moment,
Yeah.
But yes, this is the couch.
But I remember the first couch that my mum and dad ever bought for our house when I was a kid. And we moved around a lot when we were kids, and we took the couch with us. We took all our furniture with us, obviously.
Fair enough.
Duh.
Makes sense.
But I remember, when you go through the move and the packers and you're packing stuff in trucks and you're taking it out and you're moving it and maneuvering it into different positions and corners in the room, wherever you're placing it, a little bit will get nicked here and there. You tear a little bit. And then, you have movie nights with friends over and somebody would spill some lemonade on it. And, all sorts of things happen to this couch.
Cats that scratch them.
Dogs that shed fur and all that sort of stuff. And heaps of stuff happen. The couch, oftentimes, the purpose of a couch is to seat people, to provide a space for entertaining, to provide a space for relaxation and comfort.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic stuff. But when you have a couch, a lot of the time, the couch ends up becoming part of the family, which is partly where the idea of being part of the furniture comes into it. It's this whole idea that it's part of the furniture. And a lot of the time, if you keep this couch and it gets really ratty and old, a lot of the time it loses the original purpose of what it actually was meant for, because the crappier, the more torn, the more worn, the more destroyed this couch becomes, the less it's able to serve the purpose for which it was originally purchased.
Yeah, that's so true, eh?
Yeah.
I think you kind of don't even realize that it's happening.
No,
it's just that's your couch.
It just happens over time, and then one day you walk into the room and you look at the couch and you think, man, what an old piece of rubbish,
Or somebody else walks into your house.
Or somebody else
man, what happened to your couch?
And that's so embarrassing when that happens, especially if you're house proud,
Yeah.
And so the same thing can happen in church.
Oh,
the same thing can happen in your company. If you're a small business owner or you work in a business, the same thing can happen in your family. Somebody new walks into this place, your church, your business, your family, and they ask, why in the world would you do this this way? Why would you do, communion this way? Why would you still take up the offering in those little bags, the little bags that have like the velvet pouch?
Where do they come from?
Where does that come from? Why do we do that?
They're just there. They're everywhere. It's kind of like the the mats everybody had when they were kids of the roads. The road mats.
Yeah.
I never knew where they came from. No. Actually, until recently, I saw them in Spotlight.
Oh.
And my mind was blown. I was like, they still exist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I suppose, there's some things that it's almost like they just appear out of nowhere and you don't see them anywhere else.
I would wager you walk into almost any church today and there are a whole bunch of ratty old couches, metaphorically speaking.
Sometimes physically. Sometimes in physically. The youth room or something.
Yeah. The youth kind of end up with all the leftovers that nobody else wants.
Yeah.
In a way. But I mean, whatever it might be, whether it's the way, the types of songs that you sing, the way that the service is ordered, the level of engagement that congregation members have with the actual running of the church.
Yeah.
All these sorts of things.
The actual building itself, often.
The actual building itself.
The structure of it.
The colour of the carpet. That's a church divider. As ridiculous as that sounds.
Love that carpet. No matter what colour it is, there's always somebody it's their favourite carpet.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. So wherever you go, whatever church you walk into, there'll be a couple of old couches. Things that people have held onto so tightly and so long, whether that's because that they're familiar, they remind them of a better time. Maybe the color of the carpet reminds them of when they were younger and their kids were growing up in the church and the memories.
60s when everybody had bright orange carpet.
There's like one person going, hey, I like orange.
Whoever you are, if you love bright orange carpet, you do you.
You do you, man.
And I suppose the thing that sort of happens as well, I think people get a little bit confused, and I think maybe there's some sort of human elephant.
Human elephant.
Some sort of human elephant. No, there's some sort of human element here that sometimes if something is really old, we view it as more sacred.
Yeah.
Just because it's old, it means it's sort of more holy.
Like it's a relic. Or not like a relic in the sense that, it's so old, but like a relic in the sense that it's got holy properties, maybe.
Yeah. And I don't know, so maybe if you've got some sort of psychology whatever and you can voice that, please let us know. But that's something I see. Like a lot of people, they'll see this big, beautiful old, like KJV family Bible sort of thing. And it's, these huge, and often they look quite beautiful. I'm not going to deny that. If you see one of these big old family Bibles, if you haven't seen one, you can go down, often your local library will have some around. Anyway, but they're worth looking at. But sometimes people even see those and they're like, this big, beautiful, and they've got gloves on. And it's like this beautiful sacred relic, something like that. And again, nothing wrong with old Bibles, I guess, but it's just because it's old, it doesn't mean it's sacred. It just means it's from a different time.
Can I give you like a real world example?
Yeah.
All right. So when I was serving at a church, I won't say which church it was. There was a church that I was serving at as a volunteer. Mm-hmm. Now, I personally, when you see those classic old churches and on the stage they have like a bouquet of flowers in a vase, and then they have like all these fake plastic plants everywhere, and sometimes real.
Yes, I do.
Yes, you know the feels.
Yeah.
Now, I will say something, and you might disagree with me. I detest that. Cannot stand it.
Like the flowers? You don't like flowers?
The flowers and the plants and stuff. It's like, are we doing jungle theme? Is somebody going to swing in on a rope dressed in a leopard skin loincloth? Is this... I don't know. Aesthetically, I just find it disgusting.
Really?
I don't know.
That extreme. You're just not a flowers and
I'm just not a flowers and plants guy.
Okay.
They belong in the garden.
Yeah?
In the garden?
Yeah.
Great. On a stage? Hell no. No way.
Well, I mean, like, I gotta say, I don't really like... I'm going to agree. I'm not really a fan of it either.
Yeah. You're probably not as extreme as me.
I think I just tolerate it a lot more than you. But
I don't tolerate it. So anyway, this example. Okay,
Hide your flowers, everyone. Hide your flowers from Jesse.
I've already told this to my church.
Okay, that's good.
They find it really funny, and now they put all these plants up there just, I think, to spite me. So there might be a burning one day, a mass burn. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. This church I served at, they loved the stuff. They loved. They had like the fake planter pots, the bushes, like the ferns and the little like trees and bushes and shrubs. They loved it.
Gotcha.
They had a whole back room full of them because they had so many that they had to store them in the back room. So I thought one day, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take away a few every day. Every week, I'm just going to take 1 or 2 away. I'm going to put them in the back room with all the other plants. They won't notice gradually over time. So I did that. And nobody seemed to notice.
Okay.
And so I took a few more away. Until it was getting really bare. And then one day I noticed something was happening. As I was taking them away and I was coming back, somebody was mysteriously adding them back onto the stage. And so I got into this competition with whoever it was that was putting them back on stage. I took a few more away. And then I'd come back a few days later. And sure enough, a few more were back.
That is amazing.
It was just... Like I at this point I wasn't even caring about the flowers itself. I was just doing it to be a pain in the rear.
Like the Phantom of the Opera is just like haunting the flowers.
But like I talked about it and everybody laughed about it as well.
Yeah.
But you know what? They still have them to this day.
I bet they do.
I visited that church recently and they have more plants on stage than ever before.
Well, you know what? If they're going for the jungle garden theme, good on them. They're
Good
hitting
for them. Good for them.
That's one thing. Okay, I remember, like, even with my current church, they have a lot of flowers.
Yeah.
I think they do a very good job. They're honestly like, I mean, I'm not a flowers guy, but they make them look nice.
Yeah.
But at least they're open, and I've talked about, hey, maybe we can try something different other than flowers.
Yeah.
I've got a weird look. But I think people will realize, maybe we could try something, just for like a month or something, a different theme.
Yeah.
So I think there's a difference.
You're much more diplomatic than I am.
Maybe a little bit more, diplomatic.
So say what you're going to say. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, are you more of a dictator, I guess?
Look, man, I'll be honest with you guys. If it was up to me and people gave me the power to just make decisions and said, Jesse, you just tell us what to do, I would be like, yes. I've been waiting my entire life for this. You're more of a democratic. I can't even say that word. Democratic.
We'll come back to that.
leader.
Okay, well, there's a point later. We'll come and talk to that because I think it actually would be easier. But we'll talk about that later. We'll come back to that. All right. So often, so things become old, they become sacred, and then I think things become, it's almost like the way of doing things becomes just as sacred as the reason. So I think the phrase is the method becomes as sacred as the message.
Correct.
Which for Christians, I think everywhere, I don't think that should be the case. I know, specifically talking to Seventh-day Adventist, the methods should serve the message. It shouldn't be the methods and the message are like hand in hand. It's more you use the method to serve the message.
And I think for those of us who are Christians, one thing we can all agree on, whatever side of the spectrum we might find ourselves, we can all agree that the message of Jesus and the gospel and the good news for the whole world is something that is a rallying cry, no matter your preference.
It is life-changing, totally life-changing.
Of course.
So where are we going with this? The point is, a recent study by the Barna Group basically showed, and I think this is a common trend, even if you ask people, you hear this a lot. I hear it a lot just talking to people. So it's cool to see research that actually backs up what you see. But there's a really growing number of people who love Jesus, they love the message of Jesus, but they don't love church.
Wow. And that, I mean, I think a lot of people would hear that and go, yeah, not really that surprised, eh?
Yeah.
Like it's not like, oh wow, what a shock to the system. But it's still for those of us who are Christians, it's a problem.
Oh, yeah.
It's 100% a problem.
Because I suppose like a general theme you see throughout the Bible is that you don't really thrive solo.
Yeah, that's right.
Jesus would always send people out in pairs. There's lots of Bible verses about the early church, things like don't give up on meeting together. It shows it's really important.
And even if you're not a Christian, this is like elementary stuff. You know that we thrive in community, whether that community is a large group of people or a small group of people. I mean, just for the sake of social and emotional growth, you need people around you.
Absolutely. So why is it, if people know that, like, people believe in Jesus, people believe in what he proclaims, people believe in the Bible, why would they end up sitting in a place, I suppose, with a picture that church isn't really important, Jesus is important?
Well, I think for me personally, and from obviously this article, the way that I've integrated this together is people just don't seem to believe in the mission of the church anymore. Or they don't believe in the church being able to fulfill the mission that it says it's supposed to fulfill.
Yep.
And for those of us who are Christians, we know that the church is supposed to exist to be a community of people who love and who, declare the message of Jesus.
Yeah.
Who integrate people who are not believers to be able to bless them, to bring them to an understanding of the gospel. And to be able to reach the world through not only the message of the gospel, but through actively making their environment, their community, a better place. Like, that's the inspiring idea of what the church should be.
Yeah.
And what do we have instead? We have a whole bunch of old buildings. Like, I'm just going to do it in the most brutal way possible for added effect. A whole bunch of old dusty buildings that in many cases can't even pay the rent.
Oh, yeah.
Who are in threat of closing down, where people come to attend once a week on a Saturday or on a Sunday, whatever you might choose, or a mass for a couple times a week if you are a Catholic. And the churches just sit there empty most of the time. The people who attend them act as though they're not Christians the rest of the week, not by being a Satanist, but by not
such an
it's like you're not a Christian because you're like worshiping the devil during the week and then worshiping Jesus on Sunday or Saturday. You're acting as though the Christian faith that you engage with during your church time doesn't actually impact the way that you live during the week.
Yeah.
Right. And we're all guilty of that at some level.
Oh yeah.
Even those of us who are pastors. I mean, the city that we both live in, Palmerston North, is a big example of that. Heaps of churches here. Yeah. Heaps of church buildings.
In general, yeah. There's a lot of ex-church buildings as well, because churches have moved out.
That's right. That's what I'm coming onto. Lots of ex-church buildings, like heaps of church buildings that are now dance studios or just business hubs.
Yep.
That sort of stuff.
So it's pretty interesting that, it is kind of hard for people who work for the church. It's kind of heartbreaking to see, when a church has ended up like that. We're gonna just a side note. This was prompted from an article we've read from relevantmagazine.com.
Yeah. So we'll put that in the show notes so that you can read that.
So it'll be in the description on the YouTube. And we'll put it on our Facebook page as well.
Yeah.
So, if you want to check it out, it's an article about why can't I just go to church online.
Yeah.
But really interesting thought. And it kind of comes up with these three key reasons why people don't go to church. The first is kind of what we were just alluding to, that people think it's unimportant. Yeah. They don't think it is actually doing something important, actually changing the world.
Yeah. I mean, a big part of that as well is that people are... it is what we're saying. It doesn't impact the way I live. It doesn't impact the world that I live in. So why would I go there? I know there's more. I won't jump ahead.
It's okay.
I want to jump ahead, but I'm
just so excited.
I'm just so excited.
So unimportant. People see it as irrelevant.
Yeah.
The church basically just isn't answering the questions that people are asking.
Yeah.
This one's huge, I think. Sometimes you go to church and, man, you just... There's someone's up there preaching, and they're just preaching about something that it doesn't really affect you in any way.
Yeah.
You know, up there, and all of a sudden you're like, now I know how long Jesus' fingernails were. Just fascinating, you know?
What kind of cloth was the robe that Moses wore? What color was it?
What's the thread count on that?
What's the thread count? Yeah, was that Egyptian cotton or was that linen?
Egyptian cotton.
Well, I mean, he was coming out of Egypt.
Yeah,
so
maybe.
there's
That must have been a really nice robe.
probably was.
Maybe that's worth a sermon, okay?
Everybody's already bored, like they're dozing off.
So sometimes, I mean, we just go, and here is the advantage of church online or, you know, listening to podcasts like this. You can just scroll through until you find something you're interested in.
Yeah.
The amount of times I go on to preachers I like listening to during the week, because both Jesse and I, we're both communicators. That's what we do.
Yep.
So we listen to a lot of communicators of, you know, different fields, comedians or TED Talks or
Yep.
and obviously preachers, because that's very close to what we do. What is what we do? Yeah,
It's very close.
yeah,
it's very
it's
close.
that close that it is. So basically, you know, I know for me, like I'll see so and so's latest message, and I'll be like, what else? And I'll scroll down, and then I'll be like, that sounds like an interesting series, and I'll just listen to that. And
Yeah. And I think that's another. It's a really tough one because the accessibility of online church, of podcasts, sermon podcasts, of YouTube video sermons, all this sort of stuff. It's almost making it really unfair on local churches and local church pastors.
almost.
Well, yeah, because the way that you can interact with that stuff is you just consume it, and then you're like, sweet, that was a great message. Feel inspired, feel, you know, lifted up, feel maybe perhaps empowered to live my life in a different way or in a better way, and then you just move on from that. The danger, of course, which is something that we will talk about a little bit more later on, is that there's no meaningful level of engagement on a flesh level, like a skin and bones level, of interacting with the message in a way that can change you and your local community, whether that's your family, your friends group, your church group, whatever it might be.
Yep.
That's a challenge that we have to grapple with, and that's the challenge of, I think, online church. Like a lot of people are saying now that digital experiences is the future of where church is going, and I think that's true. I also think that we're going to have to grapple in the near future with how do we integrate online experiences with flesh and blood.
Yeah, there are some real limitations of the online experience, and I think you can't. It'd be interesting to see how it goes. Maybe that's worth a whole nother podcast.
Yeah,
in
maybe.
the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
What's the
people
third
say
one?
unimportant. People say it's irrelevant. Which actually, I'm just going to touch on the irrelevant thing. It actually does make it quite hard as a preacher when you get up there and talk, and you realize that everybody there can listen to their favorite world-class speakers anytime they want, and then I'm up there. I'm 20. What am I, 26 or something?
Yeah.
And then I'm just like...
Don't even know how old you are.
I've honestly... It doesn't matter. But, you get up there and all of a sudden you're expected to deliver a meaningful message. It can be quite intimidating. So I think it is hard. It does create... It's got so many pros and it's so amazing. But there are also challenges that it creates at a local level. So anyway, and the last one. People view it as inefficient. People, view as an inefficient experience. So Jesse, I'm just going to basically let you go for it.
Okay, Josh knows that I could talk at length about this,
But he's not going to talk at length about this. He's going to talk for a short length about this.
I'll keep it a short length. All right. We all know that government is inefficient.
We're going there, are we? We're going straight into government politics. All right, everyone.
Well, look, Josh is going through this right now. He's ordered a microphone, the same microphone that we're using right now, so that we both have an individual microphone.
Okay, you had to bring this up, didn't you?
Well, it's highly inefficient, and it's a government-funded thing. Customs.
As in, customs is...
Right? So he's importing this microphone from Customs. Customs receive the microphone, and when you're receiving a microphone from or anything from overseas that's over a certain amount of dollars, some of you might already know this. I had to do this buying a wedding ring for an engagement ring from my now wife. They keep the item in customs. But what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to notify you that, hey, we've got this thing in our hands. Pay X amount of dollars, we'll release it and send it to you. Stupid system, and I'm not going to talk about that, even though it's a stupid system.
Basically, it's ended up like they've still got it. It's been a while, and it's just a really hard.
They didn't notify you until how long? Like, what was it, 11 days?
I think something like that. Look, I don't know. I always like to see the best in people. I'm sure there's some reasonable explanation that it's
frustrating, though.
But basically, yeah, it's frustrating.
So, government is inefficient. It's something that my dad loves to talk about. So that's probably one of the only reasons why.
Maybe we'll have him as a guest on the show sometime.
Mr. Herford. So church is often inefficient as well. And if you are somebody who goes to a small church, particularly, you can feel this like a lot higher. If you are an attender of a big church like Hillsong or Life Church, or
that's not just a big; those are huge churches,
like huge mega churches. This is not a problem, because the reason that they're big is because they're incredibly efficient with their resources and their time management and the staff and their money. The majority of churches, the 99.9% of churches, do not have the same business practices, the same staff, the same leadership training, the same dollars that those huge churches have. And as a result, a lot of these churches, including the churches that Josh and I are both at, in many ways are super inefficient in different areas.
Yeah.
If you're a small business owner, you can commiserate. If you work at a school or a hospital, you can commiserate.
Commiserate is such a big word. Again, Jesse, back at it again with the big words.
I'm just trying to elevate the intellectual capacity of this. So intellectual is like smart.
I know what
like, I'm trying to elevate the smartness. I'm trying to make you smarter, people. Okay.
I'm going to try and make you smart. All right, sorry.
Anyway. You can kind of understand where I'm coming from.
Yep.
When it comes to teaching, preaching, leadership development, actually helping volunteers to feel supported and equipped and being all they can be, when it comes to taking the gospel to your individual city or your town or your community, a lot of the time, like when I first started in ministry, I had a mentor, who's about 10 years older than me. 15 years older than me, actually. He told me, Jesse, when you're trying to do anything in church, don't expect to get anything done for like 2 years. Wait like 2 years, and then you might be able to achieve what you want to achieve.
Woo.
That's not like wait 2 years and then you can do anything. That's like, if I want to change the color of the carpet, let's use that as an example.
Man, carpet, back at it again.
2017 or 2018, you might expect to have it done by 2020. And I was just like, that is not a world I want to live in. I'm just being honest here. Yeah. And it's still a reality.
I mean, and that's kind of the thing when you have our churches are very, democratic. Like we open it up for everybody to kind of have a say, and it's good. Like I enjoy people actually having the opportunity to have a say about something, because if something's happening that I don't like, I get to have that same opportunity to say something. Whereas I suppose in some organizations, it's just like, you do whatever I say. And
that's beautiful. I mean, that's just, doesn't that sound like heaven?
It would be more efficient. But
I know North Korea's bad. Communism is bad. Dictatorships are bad. I totally get that. But let me just say, it would be more efficient. Supreme Leader says everybody wears green shoes. Guess what? Everybody wears green shoes.
Well, yeah, I guess you're right. But anyway, so people see it as inefficient. I mean, I think even to the point where, kind of coming back to what we were talking about with church online, people even see, why would I go to a church building just to listen to some songs and hear a talk when I can literally do that same thing on my phone? I can listen to the best of the best worship of songs I want. I can listen to a sermon that I want, and I can do it while I'm on my way on the train out to somewhere else. So I can do it in my car.
This comes back to the issue of digital experiences.
Yeah.
And I mean, something that I'd love to talk about, which we don't have time for, is the incarnation aspect of that. Because the call of the gospel is to incarnate, in other words, to take into your fleshly bodies the message of the gospel, not just to have it in your head, but to have it permeate through your entire body. Digital experiences bypass that because they don't require you to do anything. They just require you to take it in through your eyes and ears and whatever, which is a challenge to us in the church world because digital experiences don't call for people to actually live out like they do, but there's zero accountability, all that sort of stuff. So a topic for another day.
Yeah. But, I think it is worth touching on because ultimately what's the difference between, why go to church then? Do you know what I mean? Why would you go? And I think if we look back in the day, when I say back in the day, throughout history, generally villages were very isolated. Say Jesse and I growing up, I was the son of the blacksmith, very muscular, beard is what I would look like if that was my life.
That's right. Yeah.
And Jesse's the son of the
village idiot.
Anyway, I would know, I would know that Jesse's the son of the village idiot. I'd know the village idiot who is his father. I'd know, his grandfather. I'd know all about his family, and he would know the same. Well, maybe not the village idiot, but supposedly he'd know me. He'd know my family. He'd know any siblings I have. We would have been very community rich. You just know everybody about them. You know their parents. You know their grandparents. You know their history. You know what they do. Just incredibly communal. Obviously, a lot of health problems, and the reality is back then as well, they were very intellect poor. Most people didn't know how to read, education was very expensive.
So today, it's almost like we flipped that script.
Yeah, because back then, actually, people would go to church or go to mass because the priest was one of the few people who could read.
Yeah.
So they would read them the scriptures. They'd kind of, give them the information injection that they needed. Whereas today, like you're saying, we've kind of flipped it because now we are incredibly information rich. We have pretty much like supercomputers in our pockets everywhere we're going.
Yeah.
Anything we need to know, we can Google on the spot. We can it's so easy to get information to the point where now we have, is it Googleitis? Is that what it's called when you, no, that's when you look at the first. We have a problem now where people don't retain enough information because they know they can just Google it when they need it.
I have
this. I know I have this because people will ask me something and I've looked it up like 3 or 4 times before.
And I don't still remember have to look it up.
I have to look it up again.
Yeah.
Because that's just what I'm used to. I've grown up like that.
Yeah.
So I guess we're in that stage now where maybe we're not as information rich as we thought. But the point is
the reality is that the average person now contains more information in their brain just from the information they've received growing up than most ancient scholars.
Yeah.
which is a mind-boggling thing.
Yeah. So it's amazing how much, but in that we've become very community poor.
Yeah.
Very isolated houses, for example.
Yeah.
Often we don't even know our own neighbors. Or maybe we know their name, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, even like when my wife and I moved into the house we're currently at, we had met one neighbor and it was great. Got to know him, nice guy. The other neighbors were away, and it's been months, but we still haven't had a chance to get to know them. They're back, but now we're busy, work, they're busy.
Yeah. And you just get into this groove where it's like you're like a whole bunch of little islands, all you kind of see the other island off in the distance, but you don't really have time to connect with them. It's a real problem, which brings us to what the church can potentially offer to people in this era, this age that we live in.
Yeah, it's more than it has to be more than just information.
Yeah.
This is why, for me at least, I put a big emphasis on our church on having the group of 18 to 30s. We all meet during the week, and a lot of people when they first came thought it was going to be really in-depth Bible study, but. And we did that at first, but now I've really moved into, we just talk about how things are going. And we actually ask real questions. What's God doing in your life? What's God not doing in your life? What are you angry about? What are you happy about? And we let people just talk and pray over each other in pairs. And it's been really uplifting for a lot of people. Because the thing is, we get so much information at church, and we get so much information all the time. So it's nice to just come and just hang out.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a directed hangout aimed to be more spiritual. But often that's what so many people are missing. And churches just become, I don't go to that church because I don't get enough information. I don't get, you know, the sermons aren't what I like. Or whatever.
It becomes a consumeristic thing.
Yeah, but really it has to be more than that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think participation is probably that big key word. You look at, if any of you are Christians who know anything about the early church, you know that it was a highly participatory experience. There was no me coming and sitting in a row watching a performance on a stage. And of course, those things have a place. They do have a place strategically for the mission of the church.
Yeah, it can be very powerful.
We can talk about that maybe in another podcast, because I do believe that they have a place, but it's proper to put them in their place.
Yeah.
And if you look at the early church, there was not an emphasis on the stage, on the performance, on the oratory or the music. There was an emphasis on individuals coming together using the gifts and talents that God had given them to, I guess, symbiotically bless their community. Like this microcosm, or this, like the New Testament authors talk about the church being a city on a hill, which is, imagine the city that you're in, and your church is like an alternate city.
Wow.
Right? So it's like Palmerston North, but it's a Palmerston North that emphasizes love over hate.
Yeah.
A Palmerston North that emphasizes healing over wallowing in addictions. Palmerston North that it's like an alternate dimension.
That's amazing.
That's what the church is supposed to be. It's an alternate dimension to the city, to the place that you live in a way.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And I think like there was study in there as well. You know, it talks about them
Of
like
course,
studying the things that like Paul or the things that the apostles would say, or that is, you know, but then the beauty of it was they'd come together and they'd act it out together. And when I say act it out, it means they actually took what they know and put it into action. They'd go and serve their community. They'd go and, you know, heal it was. And so I think that's the value that church has to have. It has to have, information is great. Information is important, and it is, but it can't stop there. It actually has to move into community and the community action, like acting on it together.
Yeah.
And that's just the most, that's all I could ask for. I mean, as a pastor, I just want to see people like move and actually do something with the knowledge. It's so easy to just learn. Yeah.
And to be honest, there is a certain level to which we don't care how that happens in a way. You know what I mean? It's like, if it's coming about in a really wacky, unhealthy way, of course, that's not great. But if people are actually moving towards spiritual health, moving towards spiritual growth, moving towards becoming a more integrated, more mature, a better person, they're not going to be doing it in a way that's weird so it's like, why would we care how that happens? Why would we care that they have to do it a certain way? They have to, attend a church from 11 a.m. till 12. Or
what if church was at 2 till 3 in the afternoon?
I mean, what the heck?
What?
Like.
But then I can't have my Sabbath afternoon nap. That's heresy.
Just sleep in, mate. Just sleep in.
No, but I need to go to church at 11. Anyway, so sorry, that's just a little thing I've experienced. But yeah. But honestly, even the time we meet, that stuff, we can't make the method more sacred than the message.
Yeah. So I would invite, for those of you who are listening and watching online, talk about why you do things the way that you do them. Have real talk about it. Don't just like go, oh yeah, that's a nice idea.
Yeah.
Like, ask the question, why in the world do we do these things the way that we do them? And if there are certain things that need to change, then maybe we need to change them. Yeah. I mean, there are some traditions that, even us personally, we think need to go. Is this the place we're going to say them right now? Probably not.
maybe later. But
Yeah.
right now, we want you to ask the questions. What do you think? Well, and if you're doing something, and this is kind of what we alluded to in the first episode when we talked about burning the
Yeah.
haystacks along the way.
Yeah.
And this is kind of what Burn the Haystack is all about. We
Yeah.
want you to actually ask good questions. We want you to really battle with this stuff.
And we absolutely haven't figured it all out ourselves.
Well, speak for yourself, Jesse. No, that's a joke, everybody. I also haven't figured it out.
This conversation is almost also for us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this is stuff that we're working through. Stuff around what do you do during the Sabbath? Why do we meet the way that we meet? Why do we structure things the way that we structure them? These are just, these are things that we're working through as well.
And one more question to throw out.
Yeah.
Well, throw into the mix, not throw it. Don't throw it out. Keep it. If church for you has just become an information dump where you go just to become more learned about something, great. But to really take it to that next level, how can you actually participate in it? Maybe it's something on the stage, or maybe it's something off the stage. Maybe it's something it's really something during the week even. How can you actually participate in what God is doing? And that, for me, is just as soon as I see I think that's why they say, sorry, I'm all over the place, but I think that's why they say the best way to learn something is to teach it. Because you're actually engaging with it.
Yeah.
And that's why, for you, if you want to really learn about Scripture, if you want to really learn about the Bible, you got to start acting that stuff out. You got to make it real in your everyday life. You can't just be a one-day-a-week Christian. You can't just be, for Seventh-day Adventist, you can't just be a Seventh-day Adventist. You got to be 7 days.
Yes.
Adventist. It's every day, bro.
Yeah. We're almost done with this podcast, and you had to put that in there.
We talk about faith, culture, and memes.
I guess that's our meme quota.
It's every day. We hit the meme quota.
I think we just destroyed the quota machine.
So, guys, think through it.
Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what questions that you have around this topic. This isn't, I think, a topic that we're just going to hit once and leave it alone, because I don't know about you, Josh, but as we're talking through this, for me, it's like opened up a whole bunch of can of worms that I think really deserve looking at on a more detailed level.
Yeah, I think we had about 3 times where we said we could do a whole podcast about that. So, the future is building.
Yeah.
So if you have any thoughts or even things you'd like to hear us talk about on this podcast, talk to us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. Leave a comment.
Tweet us, whatever.
And if you could, just interact with us, because this is a conversation. It's not us just telling you what to do. It's actually a conversation about faith, culture, and memes.
And hey, if you like what you heard, we would love for you to subscribe to Burn the Haystack on iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn Radio, wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube as well. And hey, if you would like to send us some feedback, write a review on any of those things. We read all of the reviews, and your feedback is more than appreciated. Yeah.
That's it for us. Josh and Jesse, out!